I believe that one of the biggest narratives in DeFi has just been born in the midst of a very weird situation and a very scary situation yesterday when we saw a massive whale come in and actually attempt to short the Curve token. And this resulted in a lot of panic, a lot of fun, a lot of misinformation. And I want to explain exactly what happened yesterday on Aave and on Curve, explain the situation, then also explain the massive, massive DeFi innovation that I believe was born in the midst of all this chaos that I think can present a pretty decent opportunity for you guys going forward. And I think it does spell a new era in many ways for this DeFi ecosystem. So without further ado, let's get straight into the show. And of course, in today's video, I am talking about Curve and the overall Curve ecosystem. And for those people that don't know what Curve Finance is, let me just explain it very quickly. Essentially, it is an AMM. And essentially how Curve Finance works is it uses the liquidity pools in order to calculate based on an AMM algorithm the prices of tokens instead of using an order book. So basically, Curve Finance is a DEX similar to other DEXs, but instead of using an order book style algorithm, it uses an AMM style algorithm, meaning you can provide liquidity into liquidity pools and earn yield. That is the very simple explanation to describe what it is. And Curve uses the liquidity pools to facilitate swaps amongst many different token pairs. For example, wrapped Bitcoin, REBTC, Ethereum. There's many pools in the Curve ecosystem which you can get involved in. And if you've ever used the Curve ecosystem, you'd know it is the bedrock of crypto. It's the biggest DeFi application in crypto on Ethereum, and it is the application that ties in many other DeFi protocols. So when something happens to Curve, we have to take notice, and that's exactly what happened over the last day. There was a massive drama that went down on Curve, and let me explain actually what happened. So there is a hacker or a whale in crypto called Avi. And he was one of the whales that attempted to manipulate prices on Mango markets back around a month ago, where he temporarily spiked up the collateral value, took massive loans from the Mango treasury, and that resulted to a negative net balance on the Mango markets platform. Now, this guy, he obviously exploited Mango markets back a month ago, and now he's decided yesterday to actually run a similar kind of scheme on Curve Finance and Aave. So what he did, and I'll run through the situation quite briefly because we want to get into the juice of what this means for the future of Curve Finance, of course, because it's very important stuff when it comes to DeFi. But what he did was he took a huge Curve position. So he went onto Aave, he borrowed a load of Curve, $10 million worth of Curve, transferred that 10 million worth of Curve to OKX, which is an exchange. Then he lent 37 million from Curve. 37 million Curve from Aave over the past 7 days. This has been plotting for quite some time. And then he proceeded to sell those tokens on the OKX exchange in the pursuit of reaching the liquidation level of one of the major Curve whales at 28 cents. So he was essentially selling the Curve tokens to try and get the Curve token price to come down. So basically executing a short using the Aave DeFi protocol on Ethereum. And we can look at his wallet here and see that he executed many transactions over this period of time in order to build up this short position. Kamikaze ETH said, it certainly looks like Aave is setting up for a DeFi double kill. One, engineer a massive Curve squeeze backed by a huge Aave liquidation. Two, drain the GMX pool with a massive levered bottom buy on ETH and Bitcoin. Have to respect the hustle, pushing DeFi to limits and testing anti-fragility. OXWoo did a very good thread which kept us up to date with the situation that happened. And Barry Fried summarized it as continuously borrow substantial amounts of Curve with USDC collateral, pushing you up plus high LTV, so loan to value ratio, dump that borrowed Curve, so push the price down, try to hunt the whale at 26 cents, who currently makes up 90% of the Curve supply, because we know a lot of Curve is locked. Bad debt accrual from CRV, dumps further, and RV profits. That was essentially the original plan. But we do see here that a short squeeze was executed on the Curve price. So if you look at the Curve price, it responded quite negatively at first, and then we saw a massive rebound. And that is because what he was doing was shorting Curve on perps, borrowing Curve against USDC on Aave, dumping the curve for max slippage, withdrawing max USDC collateral at min Oracle tick, closing the CRV shorts, which obviously results in the price going back up, leaving RV with bad debt. So at some point, he actually flipped his net short position into a net long position. And there's no way to tell exactly how he was hedged on different exchanges, but that is essentially the best guess we currently have. And TCB says that shorts would have to cover. That would create a bank run. Is there anything I'm missing? Arve's probably long curve and short Arve because he was trying to create bad debt on Arve. Now, the ins and the outs of this don't really matter too much in terms of the topic that I want to get into today that has come out of all this, but I do think there's an interesting point off the back of this attack. No, it didn't end up resulting in curve dumping. In fact, curve ended up being a net positive by the end of it in terms of its price because they did make a big announcement, which I obviously want to get to in a minute. So it didn't end up affecting the curve price. However, it did highlight something in the DeFi market overall. The first thing I think it did highlight for me is just how ill-prepared I do think these DeFi markets are for mass amounts of liquidity. Like if one whale can come in, essentially borrow curve, sell it, affect the price that heavily, create bad debt on Aave from a $20 million position or a $10 million position, that to me is quite worrying because it's highly unlikely any institution could come into DeFi with any meaningful amount of money without heavily influencing the market. So I do think it shows, and especially with a lot of institutional liquidity leaving DeFi, that there certainly is certain elements of this market that are exposed due to this. However, at the same time, as Kamikaze is pointing out here, he does, or Kamikaze ETH is pointing out here, he does think that it's important to have people like this in the industry, similar to like what Zach XBT does with keeping people in line in terms of on-chain data. I do think there are people like Avi that need to keep protocols in line because basically what he does is he utilizes flaws, whether that be due to lack of liquidity, due to a flawed model, flawed tokenomics. He identifies these flaws and he strategically places bets in order to exploit these flaws. And he's quite open and honest talking about the project founders about this stuff. In fact, if you looked at the Curve Discord yesterday, he was actually chatting with the founders in the Discord. So this guy is pretty active in trying to act on information, and he uses that to his advantage. And I do think in one way it's ingenious because he clearly saw there was a soft spot to make this trade. And as Kamikaze points out, true independent detective work on Twitter and on chain, you can decipher a strategy and front run it. DeFi is an epic financial and social MMO. And if you play well, you get rich. And it does highlight if you can identify the little discrepancies in the market. And look, obviously, if you have enough money to do so as well, but you can also do this on a smaller scale. If you identify these things, you can get rich. But I do think, as Mercury says, RV is a net positive for the industry. Long-term has some merit. I do think this has some merit because someone needs to be the gatekeeper. Someone needs to keep these protocols in line. And you kind of DeFi if you're able to pull off shady stuff like this. Protocols will have to stop to prevent attacks like these. And that is also true in my opinion. Now, other whales started coming in and shorting Curve just now. We saw someone withdraw 6 million USDC, piling on the pressure after depositing into Aave, borrowing Curve, dumping on Binance this time for selling. So we've seen multiple people kind of try and copy this trade post Aave. But what happened was in response to this whole event. So you guys have to think about it from Curve's perspective. You've got someone shorting the token, actively applying sell pressure on the exchanges. The liquidity on Curve was pretty thin at the time, so this resulted in a price impact maybe slightly higher than desired. The team was like, okay, what can we do to actually get the price back up? And they decided to pull out a trump card, a wild card that we didn't think we were actually going to get until maybe December or January next year. And this was a massive announcement that we knew Curve was working on, and that was their new stablecoin model, which I think has massive ramifications for DeFi, huge ramifications for the Curve ecosystem. And I want to explain exactly what it is in today's video and go through what it means. The reason we went through the hack or the exploit before we get into this is because, funnily enough, this announcement was born off the back of the exploit because they needed something to push the price back up. And one easy way that the team decided they could do that was simply to release a good piece of news in the midst of all this controversy. And very interestingly, the Curve price is now net higher than it was before all this drama, because the announcement is very bullish. And I want to explain exactly why it's bullish. Just before we go into this, the massive Curve announcement, which I think has very strong ramifications for the space, I want to just quickly give a shout out to Nested Finance. You guys know I always preach the DCA approach in crypto. I think it's very hard to pick bottoms. I think it's very hard to time tops. And I do believe in creating income generating businesses, which you can use to funnel back into crypto. And if you can set up a plan to DCA into crypto, then I believe it's still one of the best strategies. So I am starting to create portfolios right now in Nested Finance. This is the first portfolio I created. We're actually in the green now. We were slightly in the red, but now I think we've ticked back into the green, and we're actually outperforming the market by, I think, 2%. We've had some pretty good trades on BNB and Chainlink. So what you could do is you can actually deposit using the first link in the description and DCA into this portfolio. Right now, live on the show, I'm going to deposit another $1,000 into my own portfolio because I'm also investing in this myself. So I'm just going to approve this transaction, authorize. I mean, this might take a second. I might have to actually do this after the show, but if I can do it live, I'll do it live. Give permission. It is on the Matic network, so sometimes the Matic network's a little bit slow, but I am going to start depositing into this portfolio as well and DCA in myself because, I want to put my money where my mouth is. And what I am going to start doing is updating this over time. So regularly updating this portfolio for you guys. So to kind of celebrate the launch of my DCA portfolios here, we are giving away $1,000 to 2 lucky copiers. So if you do copy the portfolio using the first link in the description, I'll show you where it is. It's just this here. You copy it, deposit however much you want, $50, $20, like however much you want, $1,000. It's completely up to you how much you put in. If you DCA into the portfolio, you stand a chance to win $1,000. So you guys just saw, I just successfully deposited $1,000 into the portfolio. Now my position is 1.1K. You're going to see me build this over time. I'm going to be actively managing this portfolio, building it up slowly over time, depositing more and more and more. And then we're also going to launch the medium and the high risk portfolios as well in the near future. So link in the description to that. Get involved. Give it a copy. As I said, 2 lucky copiers will win $1,000. So even if you just put in a tiny bit of amount of money, you could potentially still win $1,000. So even if you weren't considering doing it, maybe it's worth getting involved. So that's that link in the description. Let's get on to the juice of today's show. And that is this Curve stablecoin, which I do think is a very cool announcement coming from Curve. And it's one of the more innovative things I've seen in DeFi recently. And the reason I'm saying this is because, to be honest, recently DeFi has been kind of stagnant. So pre-Luna, we saw a lot of innovation. I feel like the recent events have forced a lot of DeFi protocols to pivot into more of a safe lane, and they've been a little bit more hesitant to make drastic changes to their protocols, and I understand it. And then there's the other element of many protocols are now kind of slowing down on their announcements. They don't feel like they're getting bang for their buck announcing things in the bear market. So what they prefer to do is just build in the bear market and announce it later. And I see that as a valid strategy as well. But we saw Curve actually finally make a very, very big design change to their protocol. And the way Curve works, being an AMM, they obviously rely on their liquidity pools, but they didn't have a native stablecoin to underpin the ecosystem. They use in the 3 pool USDC, they've used USDT, they even had a UST pool, which was the 4 pool before the collapse. So a lot of other stablecoins rely on Curve for liquidity, but they decided that to be optimally efficient, it would be worthwhile pursuing their own stablecoin. And this is how the stablecoin works. So we've known this has been coming for a while. It's been very, very hyped for a long time. But finally, we did get a confirmation that this is happening. So there's a few major benefits to this stablecoin that I want to run through now. 3 major benefits, actually. The first one is automated self-liquidation. This is the biggest innovation with this stablecoin, which sets it apart from other stables. And this is essentially that they have a lending liquidating AMM algorithm, or llama. So in most other lending platforms, when the price of your token drops, your loan health rapidly decays and you get liquidated instantly. So let's say you borrow some assets and the collateral value of the tokens that you put up as collateral drop significantly. What happens is your loan health, your loan to value ratio that would decay. So let's say there's an issue with liquidity, your token spikes down 50%, you'll just get liquidated instantly, even if that's like a very short-term price spike or a wick. But what Curve has decided to do to stop these events from occurring is once you initially lend your collateral, your portfolio has a balance consisting of 100% of this collateral. If the llama, which is, as we just identified before, the lending liquidating AMM algorithm, observes the price of this collateral is dropping, it will automatically liquidate your portfolio into Curve USD. So instead of you having to rely on manually being on your computer all the time to be there just in case there's a wick down, it will automatically liquidate your portfolio into Curve USD. And if the price goes back up, they automatically repurchase your collateral. So instead of instantaneous liquidation, the process occurs more smoothly over a continuous range. So this isn't supposed to be jerky. This is essentially a smoothing of your overall position. So this strangely severely limits your potential losses and allows for more passive management of your position. Of course, liquidations remain possible. However, the Curve USD protocol allows for self-liquidation for such situations. And then the second thing is bands, which is under the hood, the collateral price is divided into several band ranges. So instead of depositing at a specific liquidation price, you deposit collateral over a range of liquidation prices. So as the price of an asset drops, or the price of your collateral drops, the contract tracks which band is active, that is, which band is currently in the process of being liquidated. So let's just use a bit of maths in case this is too complicated for you to kind of frame how this would actually work in practice. So imagine you take out a loan using 0.5 Ethereum with a liquidation range between $1,000 and $1,050. Your liquidation bands might look like the following. So you have band 100, which would be 1,000 to 110, band 101, 1,010 to 120, 120 to 130, etc., etc. So once the price drops into the 40-50 range, which we can see is band 104, your position starts getting liquidated. So it tracks it using a series of bands. Once it hits a certain band, your position will start to get liquidated, but your Curve USD position is now backed by 0.4 ETH and 104 USD, because that's the difference between 0.4 and 0.5 Ethereum, which is the loan that you've taken out. So as the price drops, the effects smooth out of the drop nicely because you're continuously getting backed by a small percentage of your position, and then it's smoothing out across 5 different bands. And this is the very unique part about this stablecoin. It's essentially risk management using Llama. It's very, very, very unique. And I do think passive LP solutions are important. An LP is a liquidity pool, so this would apply to people that had deposited or loaned against assets, deposited in a pool. This is very important because not every investor, especially not every retail investor, has time to be monitoring their positions all day. So having certain features like this that can help in the instance of volatility, especially if we get these quick wicks down, that's very important for retail, I think. And in terms of price oracles, what Curve is going to start doing is highlighting Curve's capability to balance out sudden price swings. So Curve illustrated this concept vividly this past month. They pointed out the effect of how V2 pools apply an exponential moving average to prices to help smooth out price spikes as seen elsewhere, as we can see here. What happens when someone relies on a centralized exchange for prices? On a centralized exchange, price jumped 3x back and a few times. On Curve, the current price went times 1.6 up and down. Price Oracle did a 1.3 and down. Big implications when thinking of liquidation. So essentially, what this smoothing does is it lowers the chance of you getting liquidated versus a centralized exchange. That's the complicated way that they're using to describe this. And the document is actually quite complex. If we do look at the original document, they have schematics based on relative loss and smoothing. They've got their monetary policy graphic. And I guess it is all quite complicated for those not familiar with economics, especially in the token model sense when it applies to a stable coin. But I think we can really boil this down to this, because at the end of the day, people will want to know how it's going to affect their bags, not just how it works. So obviously knowing how it works is very important for how it affects your bags, but let's just get to the point and talk about how it affects your bags. So I do think personally, this has positive ramifications for the Curve ecosystem. I think it does offer enhanced capital efficiency for certain traders and certain trading styles. I also think this will incentivize kind of a new demographic to potentially use the Curve protocol. But I do also think this is just the beginning, because this is just the Curve, the original model we're getting right now. We're not getting all the details on how they're going to implement their stablecoin, what the inherent benefits will be. And I assume that it'll be quite massive. And I assume this will be kind of one of the linchpins of the Curve ecosystem. So in my opinion, I do think this is bullish for Curve overall. The unique thing about Curve is, although they are dilutive, so although they do emit a lot of tokens, it is a revenue generating protocol. It is a highly profitable protocol, and there is a direct way to take advantage of protocol revenue, and that's by staking Curve tokens. And we know that the vast majority of Curve tokens are staked. In fact, that's one of the major reasons why that hack was able to occur in the first place, because of relative illiquidity due to the amount staked versus the amount available. So I do see the implication for the Curve token here being positive in terms of fee generation. I think if the stablecoin is adopted and people do use this new Llama mechanism, which obviously they will because it'll be implemented across the Curve protocol, then I do think this is bullish for the Curve token itself. The DAO is intended to gain admin power over Curve USD, providing more governance utility for VE Curve. What VE Curve is, that's vote escrow Curve. That's basically when you take Curve tokens off the market and lock them up for a certain amount of time, because we know Curve staking isn't liquid. It's locked staking. Of course, you can use Convex as well, but if you do stake through Curve, it's locked staking. These guys have governance voting rights over Curve USD, but they also have rights to fees generated from the protocol, which, of course, if the stablecoin does well, potentially the protocol generates more fees. So the addition of so many more trading pairs, this is another factor. Curve USD will incentivize more trading pairs to come on, because Curve USD will need liquidity to swap. That's how AMMs work. They need liquidity to facilitate swaps between assets. So Curve USD will have multiple pairs with multiple other assets. I think this could also increase the overall volume flowing through the broader Curve ecosystem. If you know how Curve works, they direct emissions towards certain pools. Potentially in the beginning, the voters of the protocol will want to incentivize these specific pools. And if these pools are paying higher emissions, that will attract outside liquidity to come into Curve. So this could result in an increase in TVL in Curve overall, because people will be incentivized to take advantage of the enhanced emissions from these pools. Right now, I'm just trying to get up the statistic. I'll show you right now of the Curve current TVL. At the start of the video, I said it was the biggest DeFi protocol. I was actually forgetting about Lido, though, obviously being liquid staking. What I meant was the biggest DEX, the biggest AMM, comes in at number 3. TVL of 3.37 billion. We saw a slight spike in TVL today, but you also got to remember Curve isn't just on Ethereum. Curve's also across Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, Phantom, Avalanche. So it does have inherent benefits, the success of Curve, into all these ecosystems, considering a lot of dApps, a lot of protocols use the Curve liquidity to power their DeFi. So we can see, since UST, like many other DeFi protocols, Curve has experienced a decline. However, the token has held up fairly well. I mean, it is obviously quite down, but compared to some of the other protocols, it's held up okay. But I mean, look, it still is down in the mid 90% from its high, so it's still down a lot. I've never really had serious exposure to Curve, but when I'm building a DeFi portfolio, and maybe this is something I look to do on Nested, I'm going to start looking at adding Curve exposure. Something I'm also looking at adding is Convex exposure, because basically what Convex does is it rewards Curve liquidity providers and CRV stakers with additional yields, because what you do is you take your Curve, instead of staking it in Curve directly, you stake it in Convex. Convex takes those assets, it stakes them on your behalf, it pools assets together, directs emissions towards the CVX pools, and the CVX pools pay out higher emissions, so stakers get bribed. So if you hold Convex, you get bribes, you get staking rewards, the overall demand for Convex increases, and that's basically what the whole Curve wars were all about last year. But I do think Convex still has merit because it owns such a large percentage of the governance voting rights over Curve. So investing in Convex is like another thing that I'd probably do alongside Curve. And then you've also got the argument for Frax as well being a major component of many of the Curve pools for having exposure to that ecosystem. So if you're bullish on the Curve ecosystem, you'd probably say Curve, Convex, Frax are three very obvious ones. There are a few other plays as well, which you can look into, but those are the ones that come to mind. And I'm not a Curve permeable, but what I do recognize is the need for the stablecoin in their ecosystem, and I also recognize that it's not Curve isn't going anywhere as a protocol, and I do see maybe next cycle, if we're looking at building DeFi portfolios, as Curve is a worthwhile inclusion. Obviously, that's just my opinion. It's not financial advice. I might be right, I might be wrong, but I do like what I'm seeing overall, and I do have my close eye on Curve now going forward. As I said, I don't own any, so it's certainly something I might look to add. And if you do end up copying my Nesta portfolio, maybe I'll add it in there so you'll automatically get exposure. Because as you guys know, when I make trades, it automatically gets allocated. You guys actually saw I made a mistake here. I put USDC into my portfolio, which adjusted all the allocations. So what I will do now is I'll go and I'll edit all the allocations of each of the coins. I will keep some percentage of the portfolio as a stablecoin balance, because I believe that we have to be pragmatic and DCA in, but I'll just tweak these weightings. You guys see how cool the protocol is now. You can actually create your own portfolios, tweak your own weightings. It's very, very cool. Very, very cool. So you're seeing me do this live now. I might just tweak this post show because I just need to decide on my final weightings. Probably want to have Ethereum around 30%. Probably want to have a little bit of Solana. I don't mind it right now for a bounce, so I might go 12% there. Lido. Anyway, I'm going to tweak this after because I need to just kind of readjust on the Nested Finance dashboard. But yeah, that is my views on that. And also, just a quick shout out as well to Apex, who are the other sponsor of my show at the moment, as well as DeFiChain, of course. And Apex is essentially like GMX and GNS, or what Bybit is to centralized exchanges, but except Apex is a DEX. So you can use a decentralized exchange. We know that there's like a real focus now post FTX on keeping custody of your own assets. You can actually trade on Apex instead, using a decentralized exchange instead of using a centralized exchange. So this is on a few different networks. It's on Polygon, Ethereum, BNB, Arbitrum. It's on many different networks. So if you do want to trade any asset, or they've only got limited pairs, if you want to trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge, Atom, etc., you can do so on Apex. There's also a link in the description where you can get a sign-up bonus as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Let me know what you think about the new Curve stablecoin. What do you think of the Curve wars that went down? Are you bullish on Curve? Are you bearish on Curve? Just let me know all your thoughts in the comments. If you did get some value from the show, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe, and in the meantime, I'm going to update that nested portfolio for you guys. So by the time you're watching, because this video will come out roughly an hour after I record, that'll all be perfect for you guys on the back end. All right, cool. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. I'm making my own music here.